that grows and advances the kingdom for soul winning. This word, bread of life, that I received today, it's not only for me, but to be shared with others, that they may grow in Christ, as well as myself, for the purpose of successful living. I want to thank you and welcome you in to another opportunity to gain and advance our lives in successful living. This is the month of September. We've talked about it is the number 9, which is the fruit of the Spirit. We're happy to have with us here clinical psychologist Kenneth Garner from Detroit, Michigan. We didn't tell people the last time that you were from Detroit. And he loves Detroit so much that he just decided to just hang out with us for a little bit because he's just been missing home so much. But this broadcast season with our producers, Jeff Akers Films, we've talked about he wanted to deal with don't gamble with your future and your children's future. And I added a little caveat to that, don't gamble with your inheritance. And after talking with him, I have learned how important that sometimes you don't know where you're at because you don't know where you've come from. And until we can identify where we come from and the stumbling blocks that was in our lives or in our families, then it's very difficult to deal with today. And if we can't handle today, then it's very challenging to build a future. So this is why I came up with don't gamble with your inheritance or your future or your children's future. And where we started out with the series Conflict on the Cliff, and how that we must identify how we got there, why we're there, and what are we supposed to do at the cliff. The cliff is a transition, a turning point. We've talked about transitional times. We've talked about transformation. And we kind of got to this point. We can't be everything to everybody and nothing to ourselves. I've said this to you many times as well as myself. You have a life to live. No one else can live for you. And one of the challenges that I say that sometimes you can feel a level of resistance is invest in yourself. There's a term called peeling the onion. And sometimes each one of us do not realize that we have a seed from God. Many times as we were having a conversation in the back, people don't know who they are because they're somewhere still trapped in a moment. And so this is what I came up with, and I'm going to give the floor to him. Life comes at you fast. And many times when things come at you or I and we're not prepared, a term that he gave me, it emotionally derails us. So the topic tonight that we have had so much success with, I'm going to revisit it, called Stuck, Struggling, that equals Survival. And my question to you, and welcoming in the Greenville campus as well as we're present here at the Greenwood campus and to our virtual campus and to our global campus, my question is, why am I still stuck? If God is supposed to be in my life, but then sometime I forget that there's a part that I need to do. And I've said this, take your life serious, not your problems. So how he and I kind of got to this point this evening that we're going to carry over into the Greenville campus on tomorrow, and for those that are joining us, and I love all that have chimed in and people have texted and said different things. We'll be in Greenville tomorrow, so please come to 1427 Suite E, Launch Road, Greenville, South Carolina. We'll be there from about 6:30. We'll begin broadcasting at 7. If you want to come and talk to him or myself, it's fine with me, but we'll probably start broadcasting there around 6:45 and trying to give an hour to the audience. So I don't know if we have anybody tonight that can interact with you on social media, but tomorrow night I definitely know that we would have. And so I came up with this and I shared it with him earlier today. I survived. And personally, I'm not a fan of always surviving. But when I said many of us today, regardless of what we have, economically, educationally, we're still stuck. So I said to him, help me this evening explain to the audience, I survived, but I didn't develop. I didn't develop. And the reason I thought that was because sometime when you go through, what do you call it, emotional derailment? You can be 26, 36, 56, and still responding through the nightmare that you've lived through. And we had an opportunity to talk to one of the young brainiacs in the back that's up and coming and in college, and she was sharing with us how she shared with a friend. Because until, I guess you would say, come to peace, come to grips or whatever with what happened and how it happened. And I've always shared this with people, there are always more questions than there are answers. So I asked him to help me with this evening, and I'm about to give him the floor. I survived. And I think many people today cannot identify their seed because they're still somewhere using survival skills and not life skills. So it says I survived, but I didn't develop. If I didn't develop, then I didn't grow. And he said something to me the other day. He said, if a person is willing to deconstruct their life, now is the opportunity for them to reconstruct their lives. So tonight we're going to talk about, do you really want to invest in you? I survived, but I didn't develop.
Thank you, Pastor. Grace and peace to all. Certainly, this is a tremendous opportunity to, as he said, to try to see how to address some of those types of situations. We do find ourselves surviving, and that is an internal mechanism which we all have. If you're not suicidal or homicidal, you do find yourself in a position where you learn how to survive, because majority of us do want to continue to live, and because we want to continue to live, we try not to revisit the pains of life. So in order to discard the pains of life, we learn how to survive. And when you learn how to survive, you got to ask yourself this new question. And that new question is, am I alive? Am I alive? And if I find that I am alive, then why is it that my whole life is invested in just my survival? And when I'm talking about am I alive, also on another part of that is to say to ourselves, am I really living? Am I really enjoying myself? Am I going to come to the point when I get up in age, when I start hitting my 70s and 80s, and I look back, am I going to look back and say, hey, things were okay? Or am I going to live in that avenue of woulda, shoulda, coulda, hadda, all of those regrets? In other words, you live in despair, which can also take a toll on you as an individual. So are you surviving, or are you actually at a point where you are able to live again? And so you see where you find, as he was saying about emotional derailment, we begin to respond as though we did as we did when we were children. And because of being that way as a child, that's the only way that I know how to engage you. So I engage you argumentatively or explosively because of what has happened to me. I used to use this thing that talked about people having a resilience. It was called a false resilience. In other words, I think, I don't know if it's down here in Greenville. See, I said Greenville.
Oh, yeah. Tell him what you
No.
He had another name for us.
I heard Greenville pronounced two different ways, so I asked him which one was correct. But now I know it's Greenville. So down here, I don't know if it's down here in Greenville, but do you ever see where they have a prayer vigil? Uh-huh. And they're standing on the corner and they're pouring out a drink. We pour out a drink for my homie.
Yeah, 40 ounce.
Yeah. Y'all, they do that down here?
Yes.
Okay. So, right. So you see that, right? And then they, hey, man, it's all right. Don't cry. Man, be strong. You a man. Don't worry about it. Right. Come on. No, I'm setting you up for failure. Because we have been designed to have this outlet that yet we've been trained not to use.
Okay.
We have to use that outlet. There is nothing wrong with a man crying. Okay, there ain't nothing wrong with it. Ain't nothing wrong with a man being emotional. Because I said again that you're either 1/3 of a man, 1/3 of a woman, or 2/3 of a woman, 2/3 of a man, or you're a whole woman, you're a whole man. If all of you is not actively engaged, you can't call yourself being whole. You have to be able to think, you have to be able to feel, and you have to be able to behave. You have to have all of them working. So to set up a false resilience is very harmful, because now you've been trained to act accordingly. And because you're trained to act accordingly, that's the only thing that's in your toolbox. That's the only tool that I can reach for and use. I think I said it on Sunday. I think I mentioned radio flyer, right? The radio flyer. What's in your wagon? I mean, is there anything in that wagon that I can use? Did anybody provide for me? Did anybody ever put anything in the wagon that's useful for me to be able to survive in this place where I find myself? But if the only thing that I have in there is the things that I saw on TV and, the Housewives and One Life to Live, we think that's what we use.
Detective shows.
That's what we use to make it.
You would think the preacher would be praying and they're watching the whole episode. I can't get anybody to sit in church for a whole hour. Go ahead.
Okay. Right. So, it's important that we understand that we need to do more than survive. I don't know if anybody, here's another thing, and I find these shows interesting because I look at these different shows because I like to draw from the mindset of the actors to see what's going on. So, I watch a lot of these things, and this is one show I don't like, but I know that my daughter is into, and that's called The Walking Dead. Okay, that's that show. Yeah, so you know what I'm talking about, right? You seen that show?
Oh yeah, he's a Hallmark man. He'll cry.
So
Becky left Willie.
In The Walking Dead, if you notice what happens, that The Walking Dead, they only mess with who?
The living.
The living. That's all they mess with. They never mess with their own, right? So that's what happens a lot of times in what happens to us. We get connected with just the dead folk. And we hook up with just the dead folk. the people that ain't going nowhere, the people that ain't doing nothing, the people that ain't got no investment, the people that just sitting there stagnant, that cold and not involved in things. I mean, I remember Bishop Garner said that he's been watching his church before he deceased, before he went on with the Lord. And he said that he noticed that the saints were getting cold. And he said he was looking out and he saw icicles on saints. And he said, y'all get too cold, then I'm gonna have to move on. I'm gonna be out of here. Right? So that's what happens when this coldness comes, when this derailment comes. I want to hook up with somebody that's like me. I want to embrace somebody that's like me, so I become stuck.
Okay.
I can't move forward because we're thinking the same.
Okay.
We're out doing the same thing. We're the walking dead. Yeah, we don't want to be bothered with y'all living folk going someplace doing something. No.
Because the living has to deal with everything, body, mind, and spirit. And the dead is kind of isolated to their own kind of thinking, is what you're saying.
Yes, you could say it like that. Yeah, they are isolated. They're definitely isolated in their own type of thinking and their own type of being where they are. Because what they find in common is what happened to them.
Oh, wow. Okay. So some people have never cleared the slate.
Yes. Well, you can't really clear the slate. Let's make sure that's correct. You can't clear the slate.
Okay.
You can't eradicate memory.
Okay.
But it becomes an adaptive form of memory.
Okay.
I can adapt to it. I can bring it in and understand it. And if I understand it, then I can deal with it now.
Okay. So
Right.
basically it's something that people haven't dealt with.
It's normally, yes, what I have not dealt with. And because I haven't dealt with it, then it becomes problematic behavior. Absolutely.
So it can reshape how you think and how you view yourself and how you respond to people because you never dealt with that moment or that time in your life, or you feel like you were never understood or accepted. So now you isolate yourself and you think you're okay when you're dulling your other senses, and that's what creates the term being stuck. So then everything you do from that window, then I do it from the seat of struggling because I'm still stuck in survival mode, rather than coming to the reality of it and addressing it. Even if it's something I can't fix, but just being understood and being heard, you're saying, can make a tremendous difference.
Absolutely.
In how I respond to people.
Absolutely.
But if I keep avoiding it, now pretty much everything in my life I'm struggling with. So I can't accept your newness. I can't accept your expectation because I'm trapped in my own mind. So what was now I relive and revisit, so it shaped my personality. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. It can shape your personality to a degree because your personality kind of gets set when you're a youngster. Okay. Your temperament, personality, all that kind of gets set when you're really young. So if there's no provisions, if there's nothing placed there, if there's nothing done for you, you kind of have to figure it out yourself. And majority of the time, if not all the time, you figure it out wrong because you're too young to actually figure it out.
Well, that's what I was going to say. So then I'm going off of my own instincts. And so a lot of times what I see are the walking dead and broken people, and I see in my mind that they're okay, so that I don't focus on repairing and healing myself.
Yes, and sometimes you don't know it exists.
So you're telling me I can literally hide behind someone else's nightmare?
With
them?
Yes. Yes, you can actually hide with them because remember, you connected with somebody who's like you, who's gone through the same experiences that you go through. So now y'all get to exchange that information, and then y'all figure that everybody else is outside of your circle. So since they're outside of your circle, then they're not like us. And if they're not like us, they're not with us.
Oh, okay.
Right. So
this is why some people have a problem integrating with other people because of their, would I be wrong to say, I don't think you're going to agree with my state of mind?
Yes, you could say that. Yes, you could say that is because I don't believe that you're going to agree with me. But you also have to understand that it's not just about the thoughts.
Okay.
It's about the emotions that come along with it. And emotions are a very powerful source of information, because what happens is that in the memory, the smells, the sights, the sounds, the feelings are all locked in, right?
Yes.
And I said before that for some of us, just coming on the block is enough.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So just getting near me is enough.
Yeah. Body's in the basement, yeah, and coming on my block. And now I'm automatically programmed to resist this new information, to resist you, because I don't believe you're going to think and function like me, because I already have my group right here.
Yeah. Wow. You're not, well, ergo's gangs. They all think alike. This is the new family. You kicked me out. You didn't want me to be a part of your family. You put me out. I went down the street and I connected with my peers and my other fellow persons who are like me. They accepted me and they brought me in because we have the same experiences.
Good or bad?
Good or bad. Now, because of our same like experiences, when you try to come back, no, you put me out. You didn't want to have nothing to do with me. You didn't want to be involved with me.
Okay.
And because you didn't want to be involved with me, now, hey, I'm done with that. So now to try to come in and try to give me new information, it's harder for me to receive that information because I don't trust you.
Trust. Okay.
You put me out. You left me alone. When you were supposed to be raising me and taking care of me, where were you? And that branches out, listen, that goes all the way out to the schools and to the churches. It all takes a part. What did the Bible say about Cain and Abel?
Cain and Abel, yeah.
I am my brother's keeper. So it's about this relationship. There's a relationship that goes on here. But once you put me out of the relationship and I hook up with those who have the same like relationship, how you expect me to receive information from you even though you are right?
Well, you can't see right if you're stuck in an illusion and live in a false narrative.
But I don't know that because I'm damaged. I'm hurt.
So I see everything through broken glass.
Okay. I'm in a house. I'm living in a house. All I know is what's in my house. Everything that I need is inside the house. Everything that helps me to keep functioning in the way that I have learned to survive and live is in the house. I see everybody outside playing, having a good time. But that's dangerous to me.
Wow. So
I can't come out there and play with y'all because that's dangerous, because I'm afraid that what might happen to me or what I might lose, that even though what I have learned is abnormal.
But I don't know it's abnormal.
No, well, some of the times they do, but majority of the times they don't.
Okay.
Because again, it becomes a survival mechanism.
Okay. And when you're in survival, you'll do whatever it is to survive.
I ain't coming out the house.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, absolutely. That comes anxiety, narcissistic behavior, depression, what others? Agoraphobia. It comes, yeah, absolutely. It sets up a lot of that. Absolutely. Because of the fact of the matter, this fear that I have, this intrinsic fear that I have about everything and about everybody. Can't nobody help me now. Nobody wanted me. Nobody wanted to be a part of who I was. And that's the principle. Let me say this. There's a thing that I taught in detective school. I would give them a picture. And it'd be a picture, of course, you know, I'm a homicide detective, so it'd be a picture of a woman who was laying, there's blood coming from her hair, from her head. Laying next to her is a bottle, there is a phone, and there's a purse. So every detective in that room, I show them the picture, and I say, what happened? And they say, well, looks like she was assaulted and somebody hit her in the head. They probably hit her with the bottle and she's down there bleeding. And I go to each detective, and each detective tell me the story. And then I go back and I say, how do you know that happened? Well, I'm looking at the picture. Well, it's just a picture. How do you know that happened? What else you know? So it comes down that they don't know nothing at all about that person that's laying on the ground. But what did they do? They interjected self. It's the I principle.